Hey, wait a minute, I thought this was just a channel to store my memes. Well, hi, I'm Stalking Sutter. I also got by Supreme Cyrix 642 in the AES community, and welcome to a newly rebranded third channel, Mixels and Pixels. This channel may host my Mixels videos, and will definitely be talking about video games and other media, hence the name. Now that we got introductions out of the way, I remember a funny purple crab once telling me that he should have become a gaming channel first before reviewing movies.
I honestly think I really messed up by not becoming a gaming YouTuber first and foremost, and then transitioning into film stuff afterwards, rather than the other way around.
So let's start reviewing some stuff involving games, because why the hell not? I might as well focus on something more my expertise before getting to some movie watching. How about we start off with the universe of the Red Plumber himself? Now, while I like Mario's games, there are two spin-off series that I like more than the main series. Those focusing on his fat and greedy rival, Wario, and of course, the ones featuring Luigi, Mario's taller brother. While Mario has his own adventures kicking the rear end of Bowser, and while Wario has his own misadventures with his whole other gang of goons and micro games, Luigi gets the more spooky games. And since it's about that time, I believe now is a good time as ever to talk about Luigi's Mansion. I've been obsessed with this series ever since I played Dark Moon, and with Luigi's adventures comes a whole bunch of ghosts to whip his ass, including the mini boss ghosts the games have to offer. So someone has to rank them, no? Well, that someone is me. Similar to Schaffrillas, I want to split the ranking into 3 parts, and have them all joined together to make one large ranking. However, I'm going to do things a little differently. Rather than go in the order of the games, I'm going to go in the order of the ones that I played, mainly since I want to cover Dark Moon first before I forget what happens when I rank the other 2 games. So it'll be Dark Moon first, Luigi's Mansion 3 secondly, before I finally get into the real meat and potatoes that is the first game. I'll be ranking every boss, mini-boss, and King Boo fight of every game. I mainly say mini-boss, however, because of Dark Moon. Dark Moon has bosses in the form of Possessors and King Boo, but it also has its own mini-bosses. You'll see what I consider as mini-bosses in this very ranking. Oh, and one more thing. When I'm talking about the boss fights, I'm ranking just the boss fights. The whole level surrounding it is a whole different story that I might dive into later should this video do well. Alright, let's not waste any more time, and let's go into it.
Disappointment in the game of life!
Now, being an avid Dark Moon fan, I won't deny that I think Dark Moon is easily the weakest of the 3 games. It feels the easiest to beat, and that's not just because I played it enough times to last a lifetime. LM3 has the unique concept of a haunted hotel with unique ghosts for every floor, and adds mechanics like Luigi and the Plunger, and LM1 has everything that makes it unique, from its portrait ghosts in each room to its mechanics that you'll use to catch them. Compare that to LM2, where you only have the dark light device, the strobe bulb, and that's kinda it, and the most noticeable downgrade, the boss ghosts. And while I like most of the possessors, as in like 3 of the 5, I cannot say the same for the rest. But if I had to choose one for the coveted last place award, it would be the old Clockworks Possessor, also known as the Oversight Possessor. The old Clockworks, I remember, was rather unique in its design, from unwrapping the ribbons to the warehouse to the entirety of Mission C5, where you really get to use Toad to your advantage. Most of these rooms in the Clockworks had one thing in common: they were big enough for you to traverse and catch ghosts in. The same cannot be said for Belfry Clock. This area is small as shit, you can barely even navigate it whether kicking ghosts' ass or not. Oh, and don't get me started on the mechanics. You have to catch ghosts in a certain amount of time, and the only way to get more is to stop whatever you're doing and blow the clock hanging back. Now, this would be higher on the list if these were my only problems with the Oversight Possessor. But no. The ghosts you have to deal with are possibly some of the worst options you could have picked for a small area like this. Why the hell do you have to deal with mummies, the enemies that I feel required the most space, on this clock face? And why the hell do the clock hands set themselves on fire in later phases? Why did they do this? This is absolutely a pain in my ass to deal with, and is easily my pick for the worst boss in Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. It's not as bad to me as N64 Toad Turnpike on the Wii U battle mode is to Schaffrillas, but it's definitely not my favorite boss fight in this game.
Down, down, down!
Now, I had to do some sitting down on this one. As while the Clockworks Possessor was easily my pick for the worst boss, I had to take a minute to consider what I thought was not much better, between the repetitive fight with King Boo, Big Boo and Vehicular Manslaughter against a train, or even the mini-bosses in Across the Chasm. But no, it just had to be another Possessor fight. The Secret Mind Possessor, or the Shrewd Possessor, is about as fun as jamming a fork up your behind and sitting on it. He possesses a floor. I mean, I guess the floor is a little creepy in design. That really means jack shit if I find it more of a pain in the ass to fight instead of actually scary. Instead of dealing with a possessed entity normally with your vacuum, the game forces you to go into a cart so you can bomb it in the face. Also, the Possessor can use a Warudo or something. This fight is really stupid. It sucks. The 3DS's sort of whack tilt control, particularly on the older model 3DS, which I had, did not help at all. It also shares the same issue with a fight that I'll get to soon, where the cutscenes just repeat. I I guess they just had to make it this long because the rest of the secret mine is very short. So why did they put this higher than the old Clockwork's Possessor? Well, despite the tilt control being kind of janky, I'll say that the concept is definitely unique. The area to fight the Possessor is also bigger. Moving on.
Back again.
King Boo 2 is not great, plain and simple. I'll give credit where it's due that the mechanic of having King Boo get hit with the equivalent of an anvil is absolutely hilarious. Besides that, the battle is pretty ass. It's by far the easiest of the 3 King Boo fights in the Luigi's Mansion series, but what it has over its predecessor is that it has segments where you run through pieces of Mansion after you beat phases 1 and 2 in his battle, thus adding a little more action in King Boo 2. Only the issue is that you basically do this twice before defeating King Boo in phase 3, instead of something like LM3 where everything after each phase is different, and that's pretty major if you're wanting to keep your player engaged in the fight. I also will say that despite the laughs you get with him smacking the head with a spike ball, I remember it being pretty difficult for me to line him up with one of them. Overall, the weakest of the King Boo fights, but I can definitely say that despite the really low ranking, we're starting to get into the okay bosses. Clockwork's Possessor was easily an F tier boss, and Mind Possessor is probably what I call a D tier boss, so this one is definitely the start of the C tier bosses.
Look out for the train.
I should have probably ranked this one lower than King Boo 2, given how it's a pain in the ass both to violate Operation Lifesaver protocols and cage the many boos that form him, but come on, the train in Big Boo's fight is definitely a unique mechanic. The lead up to and the fight and ambush maneuver is pretty interesting. There's a pretty decent mini-boss fight that I'll get into later that leads up to ambush maneuver. The train room in general is rather interesting because of course, and the fact that the game tricks you into thinking that you'll be fighting King Boo was a nice twist. When it comes to the actual fight, however, Big Boo is a rather nothing boss fight. Not as bad as the ones below it, but it's more or less the same tedious task trying to get all the boos in the cage of the train, which, mind you, can be a complete and utter pain in the ass to accomplish. And a similar case can be made for trying to drill Big Boo. Overall, not a bad boss, but there is better out there. I will give Big Boo this, however. I believe that the themes in the ambush maneuver are definitely some of my favorites from this game.
Jack sent for us.
Specifically by name.
Now let's get into what I consider the weakest in the mini-bosses. The trio across the chasm are nothing special. They are a fun challenge, and the fact that you have to go on a scavenger hunt for them is a nice change of pace. The strong gobber is a real headache, I'll say, and it's mainly because not only do the chains make the ghosts in across the chasm even stronger than they already are, not to mention that gobbers are already kind of a pain in the titanium took us to deal with, but hunters are also there throwing shit at you in the already pretty small room that is the basin. The strong greenie is not much better, but at least the smaller space suits that mini-boss better. Sneakers are the bane of my existence, but it's not like something I will talk about in another time. I honestly find that the best of the 3 is the strong slammer with the greenies, one of which has the paranormal shield. It's not too hard, but not too easy either. All these average the D3 mini-bosses as a whole into the bottom of B tier. While these 3 are different in their own ways, I do think that they'll throw an interesting wrench in your plans.
Beware of the stairs teeth.
Alright, so now that we're starting to get into the good bosses, let's talk about the 2 that just couldn't make it to the top 5 for me. Both of these are bosses that just couldn't make it to A tier and above. First up is the Haunted Towers Possessor, or otherwise known as the Harsh Possessor. Possessing a staircase was not my bingo card for this game, but I guess that's just how it is. The mechanics are not much different from another fight we'll get to later, and I honestly feel like this would have been better as a first boss rather than a second boss fight. I feel like we just needed a little more for this boss to be really good. As is, it's a little weak, but still a rather decent boss fight that really does rely on your knowledge of stairs that you have to pull down. Maybe if you were to swap the Haunted Towers and the aforementioned boss fight I'll get to later, and have the latter boss be the boss fight for the Haunted Towers, then it would be a little more consistent for this game. That being said, you may notice that this is also a rather small area for you to fight, which is a problem I had with the old Clockwork's Possessor. The reason why I don't have as much of a problem with this as a small area is that you aren't dealing with ghosts coming at you from all directions as you are with the old Clockworks. All you're dealing with is the Haunted Towers, is the stairs, which makes it better. You also don't have a clock hand assigned to challenge nature, so that automatically makes it better too. Moving right along.
Why is it when something happens, it is always you 3?
So the lead up to the Poltergeist, or Boffins if you live in the United Kingdom, is absolutely immaculate, from the cutscene in A2 to the entire walk in A3. The piano music leading towards the library is rather unnerving, and the library piano soundtrack in general has a reason why so many people love it. It's an absolute banger. The Poltergeists are also pretty alright mini-bosses. Perfect for a first mini-boss when you got 3 of them to deal with. My only issue is that, other than being able to use telekinesis to throw things, I don't necessarily think that there's all that much of them when compared to other bosses or even other variants of them that you'll see in later missions. That's mainly the reason for why both of those variants are on my top 5, but overall, the poltergeists, or boffins, are definitely decent, and they have their reasons for managing to make it as my favorite than normal ghosts. It's such a shame that poltergeists don't often appear in the main game missions other than those variants, because I think that some missions definitely should have had some of these guys.
Oh, yes.
Oh, but we're not just done yet with the poltergeist discussion. Rounding out the bottom A tier is a strong poltergeist of mission E3. Now, what makes this different from A3 when he does basically the same thing? Well, for one thing, he has 200 health points, so you're bound for a 3-phase like battle, like your average boss battles. And the other thing, not only does he just throw shit at you, but he forces you to fuck off by spinning the floor beneath you. There's no way to avoid it. It brings a little more flair in an already pretty spectacular battle in space. That's right, in space! How many battles with ghosts take place in space, huh? You tell me. That being said, there's just not much to talk about with Strong Poltergeist. He's just in it for the book, I guess. I guess he just really wanted to read George Orwell.
Why are you blue?
The final Poltergeist variant that ends up being the best of the three is the ancient Poltergeist of the old Clockworks. He's blue. He also really shows the true powers of the Poltergeist, utilizing the turntable of the roundhouse to form dust devils, using said dust devils to bomb Luigi, and sending sneakers at you to really try and get you to die. Keep in mind this was literally only because he had the minute hand to a clock that leads to Belfry Tower. I think it was doing us a favor of trying to block us from being able to access it. Actually, that goes to wit, the Polterpup and the Strong Sneaker. Perhaps they treated sneakers too harshly. Either way, Ancient Poltergeist is very high up there, and although he's not in the top 3, which are 2 S-tier bosses and an S-tier mini-boss, he's at a very high A-tier. And here we are, the 3 S-tier rankings. 2 bosses and 1 mini-boss battle. Which one of them will take home bronze? Well, that would go to the highest ranking mini-boss, the 3 sisters, Lucinda, Belinda, and Herlinda. B3 in general is an interesting mission from the get-go, whether it's reinstalling the veins from the gate that some bastard hiders decided to say lol no in the previous mission, trying to prevent a Slammer and Greenie duo from doing the exact same thing, to going into a graveyard and Elder's Toad. However, what makes it so interesting is that it gave us what I consider to be the first true mini-bosses. The Poltergeists were more of a what to expect kind of battle, but the 3 sisters are actual mini-bosses. One of them, Lucinda, or Melinda if you're a Brit, even has the same health points as the Boffins. It is a great battle. But the minor nitpick I have is that this is the exact same level where you have Toad following you around. Now the Toads scream when they're caught off guard, mainly with ghosts. So do you have an idea on what I'm hearing other than the battle music and the ghost sounds? Whatever, this mini boss fight is absolutely amazing, but when compared to 2 actual boss fights, it falls just a little short.
We are the knights who say...
No!
Who, baby? If I had to choose the boss battle which arguably has the most epic music, I'd choose this one. The tough possessor of the treacherous mansion possesses suits of armor and can duplicate itself. To defeat it, you have to rug pull all the suits of armor on one rug so that way one just doesn't revive the other. Sounds simple, right?
Holy fuck.
Yeah, let's just say shit really starts to get real by the 3rd act. You really gotta make sure you lure the giant knight to places where it's possible to rug pull it. After that, the tough possessor is relatively easy pickings. Now, while the music is epic, while the 3rd act is arguably the real plot twist of this fight, and while this is in my top 3, there is something that holds me back from ranking it in first place, and that's the gameplay. The problem I have with it is it's pretty repetitive and kinda easy for a second to last boss fight, where the difficulty should be cranked to near the extreme. The battle is epic, yes, but it's easy to get done and over with compared to the other boss battles in this game. So you, dear player, might be thinking, okay, this guy with a fairy on his head likes to have his Luigi Mansion fights in the big areas. He also wants his games to have a rising difficulty as it goes along, and usually he wants the bosses to be a real challenge. Is there a boss in Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon that ticks those boxes? Well, my fellow Luigi's Mansion enjoyer, yes, there is. The fact that the first boss fight in this game is on top of my list is honestly kinda sad. Yes, I believe the best boss fight in this game is the one with the Germa reference before the Germa reference was a thing. Too niche of a reference for you? Well, I'm talking about the Grouchy Possessor of the Gloomy Manor. This fight is what I expected from every Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon to be like, only be mildly disappointed by the time we reach the 2nd boss fight, and severely disappointed by the time we reach a 3rd. This fight is very comparable to that of many boss fights from the first game that came over a decade before it. It's tricky, it's actually not repetitive, and it actually calls for some real puzzle solving in order to get the spider off the wall. Speaking of, the spider's probably the scariest goddamn thing for your average person, between the glowing green eyes and the huge size of the damn thing. The only question is if that's really venom that the spider queen shoots out in phases 2 and 3. I mean, it comes out of her ass, so is that really venom, or... You know, I think it's best we don't answer that. The point is, this fight blows the other ones that came after it out the water. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry, I couldn't find the other ones after it better. Just found the others to be rather repetitive. Minus the Ancient Poltergeist. That one was fun. But yeah, this is definitely the game with the weakest boss fights in the Luigi's Mansion series that left a lot to be desired. At least the first fight was a real winner. And that'll do it. I thank you guys for watching. Of course, I can't end the video without giving credit to Schaffrillas Productions. The funny Purple Crab Man was my main inspiration for making this video. I think you guys should really check out more of his video game videos, like his Ace Attorney case making videos, which were my main inspirations for making this one. I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe leave a comment if you want me to know where you'd place the bosses and mini-bosses, and see you in the Luigi's Mansion 3 boss ghost ranking. Later. Also, no, I did not forget the strong sneaker. He is not necessarily a mini-boss because he is in Mission C5, and there's probably more strong sneakers if I remember correctly. Sorry.